Hey Roz, how's it going?
Hi, Janelle. How do I pronounce your name?
Yeah, that's right, Janil.
Is that right? Good. I
Right.
wouldn't like to get it wrong.
I would like to tell my viewers that in this podcast we have again one esteemed guest, and you won't have to miss this podcast because she is a writer, speaker, novelist, and a lot of other things. So first, I would like to know everything about you, Ross Morris, in context of your work.
Well, I live in London. I do all those things. Basically, I've been a creative person since birth. I've always loved making things. The people I most admired when I was growing up were people who made things. I used to think how wonderful to make books or music or dance or any of the physical arts
Hmm.
expressive things. I just thought how wonderful to make something and have other people enjoy it or be able to use it for something useful as well, because books can also be useful things, or to be helped through something by it. I just thought that was a wonderful way to live, and I always wanted to do it.
Hmm. Wow, that's remarkable. And Ross, like I would like to ask you a question. Like, do you think this creative sense that comes from birth, or you can build this thing?
I think it's something you're just drawn to. It's like you like certain flavors and smells or
Hmm.
sensations, and you just you know if you like the idea of making things. I mean, I was always when I was a kid, I was always making spaceships out of pieces of cardboard. If I saw an interesting shape of cardboard, I'd think, what spaceship could that be? And I'd
Hmm.
make it. Um, I I used to play with our piano at home, and I didn't take four lessons until I was 15, but I just played with the instrument. And first of all, I tried to play music that I knew. And then I thought one day, oh, I've got an idea of something that I'd like to make up. So I just naturally see things and make things and get an idea and think, oh, that could be a story, for instance. And I think that is something you're born with. It's the urge to do it. But I think also a lot more of us have it than realize. Because when I was at school in the early years, we were encouraged to write stories or make collages. We were encouraged to take the world around us and make new things from just what
Hmm.
we felt and saw and thought they could be. And then a bit later on in school, I remember noticing that that phase passed. The teachers wanted us to learn how to, instead of writing creative stories, they wanted us to write essays about why football was popular, or or very factual things. And
Hmm.
they actually were saying, no, don't do stories anymore. And it was as if they thought the time for being creative was past. But I think that people like me just hang on to that because they always felt they were at home when making things. So I think creativity is something you're born with. You just find you naturally do it. And then you also find that when someone tries to stop you doing it, you hang on to it.
Okay, wow. Uh, and I also would like to tell my viewers that you won Amazon Kindle Storyteller Award back in 2023, right?
Actually, as one of the judges, I didn't win it.
Okay,
That would be
okay.
lovely.
All right.
But I was choosing the winners, and I felt really privileged to be doing that because such a prize will make a huge difference to somebody's life. And
Hmm.
it was such an honor to be asked to be one of the judges. That's what it was anyway. I didn't win it, but I did get longlisted for the World Fantasy Award with one of my novels. So
Okay,
that was a few years ago now.
okay.
Um,
And
and
what's the name of your novel?
I've got a copy up here actually.
Oh, that's
It's this
gigantic.
one.
The
Life
life,
Form
life.
3. Can you
Okay,
see it? Life
yeah,
Form 3.
crystal clear. And what's the genre of it, Ross?
It's science fiction.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, it's like
Well,
Ray Bradbury. When I was growing up, the things I loved were things that took reality and gave them a slightly different spin. Made you think, what if the
mm,
world was like this? What if you could do that? And in Life Form 3, it's a world where most of the planet has been built on. There is hardly any green left, no fields, no woods, no beautiful, calm places where there's nature. And I thought, what would that be like? And what if one little piece of it survived and it was a theme park where people could go to see what it used to be like before there were roads and buildings everywhere?
Mm.
And I thought, well, what would the society be like? And I thought, well, they probably live in their phones a lot. And this was long before people were doing that. I started researching just ways that our phones might be used if we prefer to live in them instead of enjoying the world around us.
Mm.
And I ended up predicting a lot of things that we actually do now, and that the way that algorithms work and try to get our attention and try to steer us to do things because the world's so complicated. For instance, I had ways in which the phone would tell you what to buy for your friend's next birthday.
Yeah.
They would have done the work. And there was all advertisers, and this now happens. And I put all this in this book, and the core of it also came from my love of horses. I love
Oh,
riding
okay.
horses, and that gave me the idea of what if you couldn't do this anymore? What if I couldn't take a horse into a wood and experience nature this way? And what would that be like? So in this theme park, um, it's in the grounds of an old country house, which was why it was preserved from being built on. And there are the ruins of this beautiful house that was made with marble and fantastic fireplaces and rooms that were really grand, the kind of things you see in Downton Abbey and
Mm.
shows like that. And and then there are all the landscape gardens around it, and there's a groundsman who works there, and his mind is wiped every so often so that he can be very productive. And I thought this was the kind of thing corporations would do. They would try and take over your brain and your soul to make you do the work the way they want.
Mm.
And he begins to dream, and he starts dreaming he's riding a horse, and he thinks, I've got to follow this dream. And so that's where the story starts.
Wow, it sounds really fascinating. And when was the year you published this novel?
It was, I think it was 2014.
Okay, it's
So
been a
quite a
decade.
yeah, quite a while ago, but a lot of things in it are coming true.
Mm.
Especially as I said, the way algorithms sort of track you, and they steer your life because they don't let you see things that you
Yeah,
might not buy. It's
yeah.
as simple as that.
It's like I would say that I won't be wrong if I say that this book was ahead of its time when you wrote it back in 2014.
I feel it was. I just started thinking, again, that's the creative nature. You can
Mm.
create things that are whole worlds. And you think, what might people do? And what might, say, corporations do? Because they want you to spend money and depend on them and
Mhm.
all the things that are happening now. I just thought, where is this logically going?
And when it comes to creative people like you, like I have personally observed that, like even I am a student of literature, so when it comes to writers, they are kind of like space cadet. They are lost in their own world, you know. So are you that kind of a person who is lost in that your world and you try to draw out, creativity from it?
Yes, and I think it comes in. I see something and it makes me think of something, and I think I've got to follow that and discover more. At the moment I'm researching an idea for a new novel that I've got, and it's sort of swallowing my attention. I yesterday thought I'll spend just an hour on it, just to kind of keep it ticking over. Hours had gone past before I looked up, and it's like that. The world feeds you things, and you make new things out of them. And the trick that a novelist has to do is find some way of really inviting the reader in and
Mhm.
making it enjoyable and rewarding to spend time. And sometimes, and that reward won't just be fun. Well, fun is perhaps the wrong word, but entertainment is also being um, presented with questions, interesting questions, and maybe interesting new ways of seeing the world around us now. I always feel I like to tie it to something that we see either in the news or in the way people behave. The human condition, really, it's endlessly interesting. And you must have found this with your literature studies.
Yeah, definitely. Like, even I am a voracious reader. I tend to read a lot of books. Earlier, I was into fictional books, but now I'm into self-development books.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I'm a big movie buff as well. So I watch a lot of movies based on, those are adaptations from the novels. So I can really resonate with all these things. And I would like to ask you a question, like, what is science fiction? If you had to give the definition of it.
Well, there are many varieties of science fiction. As an editor, I think it's important to distinguish between them because if a writer wants to work with me, they need to know that I'll be in tune with their particular kind of science fiction. There's anything from really hard science fiction where the reader and the author are most interested in the technology and not very much interested in the people and in the
Mm,
effects on the people, except maybe at a very sort of population level. They won't be so interested in the individual struggles of a person. And then right at the other end, there are stories that present, say, quite a small change and explore the effects on people kind of like us, really, who are just doing ordinary things, with ordinary lives. So there's a huge gamut. Um, and I think it's important that the um, the change being explored could not be possible in another way. So there's a really lovely example, a science fiction, an award-winning short story by Bob Shaw. I think it's called The Light of Other Days, but there's an
okay.
invention in it, and that is the key thing that allows the story to happen. It's a kind of glass, and light passes through it very, very slowly. It's not instant. It actually takes 10 years for light to pass from one side to the other. And that means when you look at the glass, it shows you what was there 10 years ago. And that's just wonderful.
Wow.
That really is a beautiful idea. And he begins with a story of a couple who go to a farm where you can buy these pieces of slow glass and you buy them like a living picture for your house. And
Mm,
they've been sitting in front of a beautiful lake with trees, absorbing that for 10 years. So you've got a 10-year picture of this landscape that will move and gradually change. And the couple are also having a bit of an argument on the way there. And as they pull up, they see in the windows of the house, they see a woman waving, and they gradually get talking to the person who owns this farm. And gradually they realize that from the way the person who owns the farm is looking at this picture, that is his wife and his child, and they died years ago, but they've been kept in this glass.
okay.
And isn't that wonderful? Doesn't that really get you in? And
Yeah.
without that invention, you could not tell that story. So for me, that is one of the real beautiful things of science fiction, that it will let you tell a story like that. You can
Mm,
invent something that will let you show a new little piece about being human. In the end, I find that science fiction is not about inventions. It's about giving us new ways to be human.
mm. And even when I talk about science fiction, the energy that emanates from you, Roz, that's really, it's larger than life. You are really devoted to your stuff, I guess. Because the way you
Sorry.
speak, the
Oh,
way you
yes.
speak about science fiction, it's like you have, you are head over heels over this thing. Is it true?
Yes, I do. I do. I do this because I'm excited by it.
Mm,
Again, right back to being a kid who wanted to make things, who saw I saw numerous TV interviews, magazine interviews with people who made things, and I thought that is just a wonderful way to live. And some of my earliest examples that I remember were musicians, not
okay.
writers, because you never got to see writers at work. And if you watched a writer at work, all they're doing is sitting down writing. There isn't much to
Yeah.
see, except maybe if they go to a library and find a book that makes them
Mm,
excited. But it's all in the head.
in the
But
head.
with musicians, though, you could see someone like one of my very favorites is Kate Bush.
Mm,
You could see her sitting at her piano and then recording some interesting sounds that she would use eventually in a record. And she would go around just gathering stuff. And you could see how the making was done. And she could talk about it.
okay.
And you don't get to see writers doing that because there's very little to see. It's all, as I said,
Mm,
in the head. But with a musician, you could see them putting everything together and playing an instrument and
mm.
deciding to do it again in a slightly different way because that would be richer and more perfect. So yes, there's all that really inspired me too. I just thought I want to make things in the medium that I know I can do, and that really I find that really exciting and rewarding.
Wow. And is this the person, lady you are referring to?
It
Kate?
is, it is.
Okay.
Just love her, love
Wow.
her.
Hmm. Interesting. And I'm not sure. Are you into movies, Rose? Like,
Oh yes,
okay.
yes.
What sort of movies?
Well, it is almost impossible for me to single out favorites. If you ask me, I will I will think of several really good answers after the interview's finished. But things that spring to mind, there's a movie I love called Ondine by Neil Jordan, where it's got a slightly fantastic element, but actually it's not. But it's on the borderline. It's almost like a fairy tale. It it begins with a trawlerman at sea, and he pulls up his fishing net, and in it is a woman. It's a bit like fishing a mermaid out of the sea.
Oh,
She's
okay.
nearly drowned, and then the story just takes place from there. She's beautiful. She can't really speak. She's actually from another country, but it's very strange and beautiful, and it's really touching.
Interesting. This actor, Colin Farrell, I guess.
Yes,
This Ondine.
that's it. Yes, yes.
Wow.
It's a beautiful story.
And likewise, Roz, if some director or producer comes up to you and they want to make a movie of your novel, who do you think would be the right actors for your novel?
Oh, I think oh, that's so hard to answer. Um, I think the hero of Life Form 3 would have to be sort of quite actually Colin Farrell would be quite good because
Okay.
he's got a sort of um he's got a worried but intelligent look to him,
That's
and
true.
he's clever. Yeah, yeah. I think that would work quite well. There's an old character in it who's a kind of mentor character. You might have come across this if you've been studying it's kind of parts of stories. There's a classic character who shows the protagonist the way and helps them into the new world. And he would be somebody quite gruff and grumpy, but with a soft interior. So someone like Michael Gambon or mm, Ian McKellen, just a really
Okay.
kind of almost an old tree of a person.
Yeah. That the last guy that you mentioned is a little bit of age person, right? In McKellen.
Yes, I mean, it's experience that this character has got, and the
Mm,
mentor often has this. They've been through that world. and so they can guide the newcomer. So this story is somebody who is discovering a new part of the world, and it's a very common story trope. I mean, in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker's the newcomer, Obi-Wan Kenobi is the mentor character, and eventually the mentor has to step back and let the protagonist really become themselves, their new selves.
Mm. Wow, interesting. And I'm checking out your book simultaneously. I would also like to
Oh, thank you.
tell my viewers the Life Form 3.
That is, yes.
Yes. And this is you, I guess, Ross.
Yeah, that's me. Look, can't you tell?
Nice, nice. It's really amazing. You have written several other books as well, right? Ever Rest,
Mhm.
Not
Yeah,
Quite
that's
Lost.
this one, Everest. That's a
Okay.
novel.
Oh, all right.
Um, that was another idea that I just couldn't leave alone. I
Mm,
It started with the idea of somebody falling into a glacier while climbing
mm,
and not being able to be rescued. So he's just there until
Step.
eventually
Mm.
time um, lets him come out. And meanwhile, everyone around him is getting older because years pass. This can take years.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And they're getting older, and he still looks the same as when he went in.
Mm. And like in context of, I guess you also mixed biology with it because when it comes to, ice, we tend to, our like life kind of freezes. Like it's good for our skin and all.
Mm.
It's also anti-reversing, like it can reverse the age. That's how you
Yes,
came up with
yes,
this concept?
yes, yes. I was fascinated by that and fascinated by almost two times in the world. There was the time of this person who's in the glacier, just
Mm.
frozen, and then the time of everyone else who was just carrying on. 20 years pass, and he's still in there.
Wow.
Um, and then I added, and this is something that I do. I added another dimension to it, music,
Okay.
because he's a musician, and that's why the cover is a record
Okay.
label
Yeah.
and the record sleeve.
And
And
like
oh,
your
did you want to
novels
see
are
it?
a little bit humongous as well, right?
Yeah,
Ross.
yeah, that's a little bit humongous. But people tell me that they got through it very quickly because they didn't want it to end and they really enjoyed it.
Wow.
Uh, but he's a musician, and so and he's a very famous one. So the world is playing his records, which again are from when he was alive and beautiful, and they were young and beautiful as well. And meanwhile, everybody else is sort of getting older, and so he's an emblem of their own youth as well. And that's the kind of thing I love. And that's, I think, where my science fiction sensibilities come into play, because I thought it's not science fiction. This is not science fiction. It could really happen. In fact, it has happened, but not in this exact way. But people have fallen into glaciers and then not come out again for
Yeah.
years. Um, but what I did was I wanted to make a story that would express the strangeness of time passing and our youth, and just let us enjoy also
Mm.
how much music means to us, because music is a time machine. And it's not just a time machine because it's the recording of moments. It's a time machine of our hearts as well.
Mm. Wow. You spoke volumes, Rose. And uh, if you had to be a character of one of your novels, which novel would you like to go with and why?
Oh gosh. Well, there are several. I would, but it would be a mixed blessing because the characters go through enormous trials in order to come out where they do in the end. Um, the there's a character in Everest who is the the best friend of the person who fell into the glacier,
Mm.
and um, I I think if I were wanting to be, say, a good and honorable person. I would want to be him, but he suffers enormously,
Okay.
and he has to come through a big arc in order to get to the end of his story, because really the title Everest is how
Mm.
will everyone live after this? That's the question that the story is asking. So there's a lot of that. Um, and there are other characters in that book who have easier lives, and I think it would be easier to be them. But he's one of the people who's got to really go through the mill. That's something else that you find in stories. As we were saying, the Luke Skywalker character, the protagonists have to learn how to be the new person, or how to live in this world they found themselves in, or how to move on, all those sorts of things. And those are really difficult. They involve a lot of change, they involve a lot of pain, a lot of difficult choices, and all that. I would not like to be a character in a novel, actually, is the answer. And I think that's such a good question that you've asked. I would rather just live a quiet life and think about how to express things and not have to go through the kinds of things that characters in stories do, because they
Mm.
really have a hard time.
Wow.
That's such a good question. I'm so glad you asked that.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, And like apart from like this novels, like who are the people or the authors that you look up to and you try to, try to imitate or you learn something out of them?
Oh, I learn from everyone. And it takes me a very long time to read a book if I'm enjoying it, because
Okay.
I just get trapped by a beautiful sentence. And it's not necessarily because the words themselves are beautiful, but it might be because of the way it resonates with something further back in the book. So I couldn't give you examples, because you would need the whole context of the whole book in order to know why it had such power. Uh, but there are loads of writers I really enjoy. I've mentioned Ray Bradbury. I love Graham Greene, Somerset Maugham. I'm now just going to look around my study and pick names out at random. Andrew Miller, he wrote a beautiful book about a woman who was very emotionally stunted, and she goes on a voyage across an ocean in a boat on her own,
Oh.
and it is called The Crossing. It's strange and deeply human, and he just inhabits her humanity and her difficulty with being a human. And somehow there's something universal in that, because we all have difficulties being
Hmm.
being human. So its strangeness is also somehow universal. So I loved that. I'm also looking at Patricia Highsmith, the first Mr. Ripley book. That was very well done. That she has a real insight into this difficult character who's just trying to stay one step ahead of everybody. There's there's real ingenuity there. Um, I'm also looking at Martin Amis' Time's Arrow, which is a story written backwards. It's
Okay.
amazing. It begins with the death of the character and then goes backwards through his life. And um, he was a guard in a concentration camp. So he's trying to kind
Mhm.
of, there's a sense of atoning and trying to undo and trying to put right the horrible wrongs that were done. And
Mm.
it has remarkable imaginative ideas. And you have to read it and go through the steps in order to, and you realize this is what I'm being shown at this moment. It's a really powerful way to explore the inexplicable.
Mm.
Um,
And
um,
the name that you mentioned previously, Ross, that was Andrew Miller, right? Andrew Miller.
yes,
And is it this guy
I don't actually know what he looks like. Could you find The Crossing?
crossing? Because he's a writer and actor also.
This one isn't an actor, he's just a writer.
Okay, Andrew Miller. Got it.
Yeah,
The crossing.
that's it. That's it. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Wow.
I am very much drawn to the beautiful and strange. I think
Yes.
every example I've given you is beautiful and strange.
Yeah. Wow. What I do is like after this, once the recording is over, I study these things, the like how what the names that my guest like you
Uh-huh.
mentions, and I try to look those things in the Google. So it helps me a lot in being like being more creative. So every time I do a podcast, like my last podcast is always better than the next one. So
I hope that of my books as well. I hope that the ones I'm writing now are better than the ones I wrote before.
yeah, and I'm immensely grateful that you like joined this podcast because I learned a lot of things from you. The way you are, devoted towards your work, how your face lightens up when we talk about science
Oh,
fiction.
thank you.
So that thing, I guess my viewers can also take away from you. Like, be passionate, be diligent towards your work.
Mm,
There is a quote like, if you love what you do, you don't have to work a single day.
yes, but you do have difficult days though, but you have to keep hold of what makes you love doing it. I think. I
Mhm.
mean, I have many difficult days when I'm thinking, how will I solve this problem? Or this isn't working out. I found a reason why it's suddenly not as good. And here's a tip that I give to writers, because I work with a lot of writers.
Okay.
Um, Make notes that
Mhm.
capture your excitement about an idea. When you're excited about a new idea, write down why it excites you and keep that somewhere where you can go and look at it, because that's like your kind of mission. It's to make something out of this thing. And you usually find if you go and look at that, you think, oh yeah, that's where I started. And you can get back to it again, just because you might have done a few days where it wasn't going very well. If you get out that piece of paper and look at it, it will put you right again. It will say, but wait, it's this. Those few days where I was going wrong, or it might even be a few months, they have they derailed me a bit, but the thing that I was excited about is still there. And then what you also feel, that work that you've done where you were going a bit wrong will will suddenly come into new focus. You'll think, well, that wasn't the right way for me to do it. So now I know a bit more about how to do it the way I want
Mhm.
to. Does that make
Makes sense.
sense?
Yeah. And one more thing, Rose, before this Zoom meeting compels us to end our,
Oh,
meeting,
yes.
I would like to ask you one question. Like, if I take the writers, the classic ones like Samuel Taylor Coleridge or Ernest Hemingway, they were all, kind of like addicted to some sort of thing. And once they do this kind of addiction, they got the ideas, creative ideas. So, like, do you writers have such kind of things where you feel like,
I'm not very good with substances. I don't make much sense after I've had a little bit of wine, and
"Mm,
that's about as much as I dare to do. We all find our own ways of um, seeking a state of mind where we can feel like we're having ideas and we're in the zone. And I think that there's a lot of resistance that we have to overcome to start with. So we might sit down and think, don't really feel like it today. And we've got to just get past that. And I think what you're describing there is what they did just to get past that. But it is
yeah,
perfectly possible to write good work. There are many, many writers who just sat down and got into it and did the job that way. And remember, I was describing a little bit earlier how I thought, oh, I'll just do 1 hour on this book. 4 hours later, I hadn't realized 4 hours had passed. There is a bit of resistance at first when you're thinking, oh, I don't really know if I feel like it today. I don't know if
it's a
I
human
can
nature,
capture
I
it.
guess. Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. No, you don't have to do anything like that.
All right, Rose, I had such a whale of a time having this conversation with you, and I hope that this is not our last one. We'll keep making this, till the
Yeah,
cows come home.
that would be lovely. And you ask such good questions. They really made me think. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And on that note, Rose, I won't hold you any longer. We'll catch up soon. In the meantime,
Okay.
once I'll edit this video, I'll share it with you.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you need to tell people where to find me?
No, I guess I like the book is you can can you show me once again your book,
Okay.
Rob? Yeah.
the first one I talked about is
Yes.
Life Form 3,
Hmm. Ross Morris
Rozs
and
Morris, and the other one is Ever Rest.
Everest. Okay, two books. And where can my viewers find these books, Ross?
Yeah, you can find them everywhere. I have links. I can send you links that will show you where to find
Definitely.
them.
Yeah, I'll add it in my
Okay.
description and also on my all the profiles. All right. Good.
Okay. Thank you
Uh,
so much. That was
yeah.
really fun.
Take care, Ross, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Take care.